My life is so interesting because I literally go from having the most wholesome time with 4-year-olds, just having them draw me the most beautiful drawings, to me tying their shoes and giving them water and just being a teacher, to getting drunk and watching Starstruck on my couch with my friends. And honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with that lifestyle. And then I go to work the next day and I'm like, oh my God, your mom is getting you like a batch of cookies today. Like, working in a school in your early 20s is the funniest experience ever. Like, you won't know until you work with children. It's just so crazy. But hello, welcome to episode 3 of Aquarius Truly, starring me, your host, Lisette Serrano. Serrano like the pepper, period. I am drinking some white wine. I don't remember what the flavor was. This was literally from last night. And it was just sitting in my fridge because I'm not really a heavy drinker like that. I'm actually a very light drinker. So I'll always have just so much extra. I think I drink the least out of my friends. So when I saw this in my fridge, I was like, oh my God, perfect. I will be sipping on this as we get into this episode because this episode is a little juicy. I won't lie to you guys. It is quite juicy. It's quite interesting. It might offend some of the pick-me community out there, and I do apologize for that, kind of, sort of, not really. And if you are someone who is going to get triggered by this and is going to get upset and be angry, just understand that that is an issue that you have within yourself that has nothing to do with me, that has nothing to do with my show. That's something that you just have to resolve within yourself, and that's totally fine. Just don't bring that energy in here because it doesn't really have much to do with me. I sound like such a villain. I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, geez. Okay. So yeah, I'm drinking my wine. I have a Golden Girls wine glass, and I'm actually having my rose wine glass right now. This is probably my go-to. I would say I'm like a Dorothy and a Blanche, but I don't have a Blanche wine glass. I literally have all of them except for Blanche. Long story. It involves my neighbor. In a few years, he's gonna be like, you what? He got his glasses back though, so it's fine, but whatever. It's quite a funny story, but it's for another time. But yeah, today we are just going to be talking about the wonderful world of boyfriends and how girls, and I'm not generalizing everybody, and I don't want y'all to think this is sexist either. Hear me out. I'm telling you, the girls that get it, and the girls that don't. And that's okay if you don't get it. Learn a little something, maybe. I don't know. But this episode is about the lovely community of women that have boyfriends. And for some reason, when y'all get boyfriends, y'all including me, because I also did do this, so I'm speaking from experience, why y'all get boyfriends and to be quite frank, become the worst. I'm just gonna be real with y'all because we're always real on this podcast. It's literally Aquarius truly, not lyingly, okay? So I'm literally speaking from experience. When I started dating my very, very first boyfriend, who was literally for a month, and honestly, there's kind of a lot to unpack there because I was 14 years old and he was 17 years old. Gulp, I know, terrible. I look back on it and I'm like, girl, what the heck? Obviously, that age gap now is not bad, 23, 26, that's not bad. But obviously 14 and 17, that's a lot. And there's a lot of life changes. And I feel like men just kind of have to unpack when they are so interested in someone that is much younger than them. I don't know, lots to unpack there. But anyways, when I started dating him, I remember I was all about him until I wasn't. And I got interested in someone else. And then I started dating who I count as my first boyfriend. who was like a year younger than me. And then I didn't learn my lesson, and then I dated younger again. And then it's just like, it was a funny little cycle. Yeah, I hate dating men younger than me. Anyways, with the first boyfriend that I dated for a year, I was all about him. I literally wanted him to be a part of everything in my life. I was so obsessed. I was head over heels, as any 15-year-old naturally would be. The issue with this behavior is that sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, sometimes we carry that behavior of being all about our man and all gushy and like all basically like a 12-year-old. We carry that into our adulthood. And I don't necessarily blame women for doing that. I blame the patriarchy. But unfortunately, like, we're like some of us, not everybody. I know plenty of people who have boyfriends that are not the worst. But unfortunately, some of y'all fit the card, and that's fine. You know, like, it's okay. Let's take a sip of our wine before we get into this, y'all. Okay, love that little ASMR I gave you. But with this behavior, I am someone who I carried it into my early 20s when I started dating my most recent ex. And with him, I literally wanted to bring him to like my sister's party, even though like it was like her going away party. She didn't know him very well. And this even happened with my situationship, where I was just very much like, oh my God, why don't you want them to come? Like, please, like, it'll be so much fun. Just like inviting new characters in, for lack of a better word, because they are new characters. Basically inviting these people to these events and just wanting them to be a part of everything. And it's strange. It's like, obviously I understand the excitement and everything. And like, I, as someone who experienced it, like, obviously I was very excited, but it's like, if someone is not ready to meet this person yet and the relationship is very new, perhaps it's best to not bring them to stuff immediately or shove them into everyone's faces, like, as I definitely have been guilty of doing. And it's just like, sometimes it just feels really pushy, and like, why, I guess sometimes you kind of have to unpack why you want to bring them everywhere. Like, is there a level of insecurity or feeling like you kind of have to own them and like bring them to everything so that you can be like, look at how much power I have? Because when you have a man, you have more power. It's not like me being sexist. I don't think that, but that is what society thinks, unfortunately. All of this is just very unfortunate, and I just want to keep reiterating the fact that this is because we live in the patriarchy, and under patriarchal standards, with a man, you have more power. Like, that's just how the world has always been, and unfortunately, it's still continuing to be that way. I mean, women couldn't even get the chance to vote, like white women, and literally women of color didn't get the chance to vote for like much later on, you know what I mean? Like, and all these things still happened relatively recently, which is why we still have a lot of these standards today, because the world that we know today is still very new, if that makes sense. Like, the way sexism has been for years, it's very difficult to rewrite certain things just because of how many centuries this has existed for. Like, we're going back to like the BCs. So naturally, it's going to be hard for society to unlearn that you don't necessarily need a man for power. As welcoming and as more socially accepted it has become to be like, you don't need a man, like, no, like, you are for yourself, self-love, blah blah blah. Those concepts are still very new, and I'm not even talking like a couple 100 years old. This idea of not needing a man, that we're still learning, because we're still not even there, that literally just got here not even 20 years ago. Think about it. Think about how many early 2000s movies are all about the guy. and all about just like, they tried to invite certain ideas of like not of independence and like being able to be yourself. But the fact that some idea like that was revolutionary in 2005, which was literally not even 20 years ago, girl, like that is so concerning that we are just now learning this as a society. I would say this era that we're in of independence, of like self-love and everything, is not even 10 years old. Look at the internet back in 2013. How common was it to hate yourself, especially as a woman? Every day was just like, in middle school, I remember seeing like, oh, I hate myself. Oh, it was like cool to hate yourself. You know what I mean? And now we're in this era where it's cool to love yourself and it's cool to be independent. Well, we kind of just got here, I don't know if you guys remember these little blog posts that would be on Tumblr of, I think it was called like teenage girl posts or teenager posts. I just look up teenage girl post meme of like 2013 and you'll probably find it. But it was literally just like these quote unquote relatable scenarios, and they all kind of talked about hating yourself. And it's not even in a cutesy 13-year-old way, because there were like 18-year-olds and people in their 20s that were kind of normalizing this idea that you have to hate yourself. So obviously, how are we going to find independence in an era where it's so socially accepted to hate yourself and to not feel comfortable in your own body, to not feel comfortable in your career, in loving yourself, when like the idea of loving yourself wasn't even like at the forefront of anyone's mind, at least not until like maybe 10ish years ago. So obviously it makes sense that we're still unlearning this, right? And even now today, we have this idea where it's very just normalized, and not in a fun way, because I want to explain all my points before people jump to conclusions. It is just very common, and I definitely noticed this at my school, that like everyone was sugaring, everyone had a sugar daddy, and essentially like needed a man to feel financially responsible. And I understand their circumstances where, you are obviously in poverty and like you obviously need some level of support, and it's fine. And I don't really judge people who have those jobs or anything, but I think it's important that we do recognize that like the man has a lot of power in that job, and we can have a level of self-empowerment with that. Because I'm not saying don't sugar. I don't want anybody to think that. I think you guys can literally do whatever you want. I don't care personally. As long as like you're protecting yourself and taking care of yourself and everything. But what I do want people to understand, that like it's this idea, at least this is what I think. I do think it is a bit naive to believe that the man is benefiting significantly less than the woman in a situation where they have financial power, and that, they're being used financially. Are they really being used? Because they are getting pussy, first and foremost. They're getting all of the attention in the world. They're getting fed compliments. Their ego is getting boosted. I don't necessarily see that as a loss for a very rich man who is spending what their sugar daughter, I don't know, no, sugar baby. I was like, sugar daughter? I was like, what's the word? I don't necessarily see that as a loss for them giving what to them is honestly not that much money to their sugar baby, even though it is a lot of money to their sugar baby. You know what I mean? It's like, if you are a sugar baby and like, I don't know if there are like rich sugar babies out there. I don't know, whatever. I'm not really sure. But let's say you're not that rich. You're like me or something. You're like pretty regular, pretty standard financially. Like you're not struggling, kind of, sort of. I mean, I don't know. How much can you really not struggle in your 20s financially? But, I would think $2,000 for a date with an older man is a bunch of money. That older man, however, we have to remember he is maybe a multimillionaire, perhaps even a billionaire, has a ton of money. That's like him spending like $10 on a date. So it is naive to think that he's losing in that scenario because like, oh, you're just using all his money. You're not really using all his money because it's just going to keep on coming because he's wealthy. You know what I mean? So I think there just has to be that acknowledgement and to not be naive in thinking that way. And it's fine. And once again, let me repeat myself. I am not judging anybody, but I'm just saying like, let's think critically about these scenarios. Let's like really look down to like let's look at what it boils down to essentially. And yeah, literally if you're getting your bag or whatever and like you're doing that, power to you. But just know that the man is also getting a lot of power as well and is receiving a lot and isn't losing. When these ideas are normalized and seen as a man not really losing anything and like gaining so little from it simply because he's losing what seems like a lot of money to you, that's where the patriarchy continues to be upheld and continues to just remain strong. And it's kind of why we're still in the scenario that we're in today. And we do still have a lot of this idea of like needing to be taken care of, especially like by a man. It's still very heteronormative. And like, I don't know if we're ever going to get to an era where things are not heteronormative. But once again, patriarchy, it all goes back. Everything's connected, where marginalized groups are at the bottom of the food chain, unfortunately. And that's just the world that we're living in. Not the world I want to live in, but that's what society basically is doing right now. And when we make these jokes, I've definitely had like a few girlfriends that I'm not really close to anymore where they've said things along the lines of like, you should get a man to protect you. You should get a man to take care of you financially. And I have been guilty of thinking these things. And that's something that I've had to unpack sexism within myself, that I've had to be like, why do I feel like I need a man to take care of me essentially? Or like, why does this person feel like that's so important or so valued? Like, needing to rest and go backwards, and just like literally a lot of people like are still like, oh, he does the work, he takes care of me financially, I cook for him, and like that's it. And like we are just going to continue to have these standards that have been in place for years and they're never going to go away. It's still normalized. Like, do y'all see how these systems are still being upheld to this day? It all goes back to the patriarchy, y'all. Like, it really all goes back to there. So when we make jokes like that, they do have a lot more power than we think. They do have just like a lot more fire in them, and like they're not just like heartless. They're not just like thoughtless jokes or anything, or mindless or stuff like that. Like, it's literally like continuing to uphold the patriarchy. And I'm not saying to never make jokes like that, or like that it's wrong to like want to be taken care of. Like, I have not said that once in this podcast, and like I'm gonna repeat that again, that none of what I'm saying or like quote unquote criticizing, I'm not saying you're wrong for doing these things. My main, which we've kind of got like away from that topic, but it's all kind of connected, so it's not really off topic. But my idea that like some girls get a boyfriend and like literally turn evil, it's like, I'm not saying that other things of wanting to be taken care of or wanting different things are wrong. No one's wrong in this scenario. I'm just sharing my opinion. Aquarius, truly, it's my opinion, it's my pod, you know what I mean? So if you do these things, like, I'm not saying this to be judgmental. I just feel like I gotta repeat that before people get the wrong idea. So with that, all that being said, now that we have like a 14-minute idea of what the patriarchy is, how we got here, how it's continuing to be upheld, Let's talk about the juicy stuff, about becoming evil and feeling so powerful because you have a man. Now, I want to talk a little bit about myself. My journey with the level of worth that I have as a person is ongoing and did not come easily whatsoever, not even 1%. It was not easy at all. It has been hard work and continues to be hard work. I have to work very hard to care about myself. Has it gotten easier? Yeah, through really bad experiences. Like, the universe loves to just test you a bunch and really ask you, hey, how much do you care about yourself? Life is a constant game of how much you care about yourself and how much you're willing to risk for yourself. And it's never linear. And we talk a lot about this in spirituality of just like how your journey as a person and your road to self-confidence is unfortunately not going to be linear. How fabulous it would be. How great of a life would we all have if our growth was linear and you only had to struggle one time badly and then after that you're good and you love yourself. Girl, would be breezing through it. However, the downside to that is we would be bliss and not ever learn anything, never experience any level of transformation and stay the same. I don't know about y'all, but to me, that sounds very boring and that does not sound fulfilling whatsoever. So sometimes God and the universe just want to push you and make you feel better about yourself. So back to me. I have experienced many bad situationships. Oh my God, I'm so unique, right? No other girl has ever experienced a terrible situationship other than me, or a terrible boyfriend other than me. No one, right? It's so subjective. Yeah, obviously not, girl. We've all gone through it. So through me going through these experiences of men who either did not care for me, were very nasty and terrible, abusive, like I have truly gone through the ringer with men. I'm telling you, like some of the, not the worst, but like some of the really bad stuff or like terrible things you can think of, I have probably gone through that. Obviously, all of us girls have been used for sex repeatedly, and it's fine. Is it? I don't know. I don't really know. I don't think it is personally. But through going through all of those experiences, obviously after these men being terrible, I for some reason found myself still caring what they thought, still giving a fuck about their opinions, giving a fuck about what I looked like in front of them, and just like giving so much importance to their tiny little stupid brains. Not all men, but I'm talking about the ones that I have dated, because I'm like, were there any good ones? I'm like really trying to think. I'm like, one man, but we didn't even date. Like we just had sex. That was probably like the one or two people, one or two guys that like weren't terrible, whatever. Anyway, so for some reason, yeah, it was just like, obviously when I was still fawning over them after doing such terrible things, that is something that I had to unpack within myself. Why do you care so much about someone who clearly does not care about you and doesn't even like you, if we're being real? Because I don't know about y'all, I would not shout at someone that I like very much or that I care about deeply. I would not, ditch someone and ghost someone that I cared about very deeply and never give them closure. I would not send threats or ultimatums to someone that I cared about deeply. So when you find yourself fawning over someone who has done bad things to you, girl, you gotta unpack it, because it all goes back to the big question of why. And I can give you an answer for the why, and it's up to you to unpack where this stems from. The why you do this is because you actually don't love yourself as much as you think. Because, like they said in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, we accept the love that we think we deserve. So, why did I meet my abusive ex after going through the situationship that I thought changed my life and I thought turned me into like the best version of myself? Why then did I find a guy that shouted at me and manipulated me emotionally on several accounts? Why did I find him even though I thought I grew? Wait, I thought I loved myself. I was going to the gym. I was taking care of myself. Why am I in this situation again? Like I thought we went through this. Girl, clearly I did not love myself as much as I thought I did, because if I loved myself, I would not accept behavior like that. And I think the big lesson that I learned from this situationship prior to finding my abusive ex is like, okay, don't fawn over people who don't give a fuck about you. But then it turned into me fawning over someone who did give a fuck, but was a narcissist and kind of cared more about himself than he did about me and would never admit it and was just clueless overall. You know, through going through that was another lesson that I had to learn of like, you know, yes, we learned like don't date bare minimum guys, blah, 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 all that, this, that, and the third. But I didn't yet learn the lesson of like what it looks like when someone seemingly cares too much about you and when perhaps love is not enough. I hadn't learned that lesson yet. And I think it was important. And what sucks about all this is like I haven't learned every life lesson yet. So I still have like so much. And I'm like, who's going to break my heart next? I think where I'm at, y'all, is just I don't really want to date anyone. I just kind of, you know, I'm a Scorpio Mars, so I'm 23, I'm single, she's popping, you know. Like, oh my gosh, people just listening didn't see. I just looked down at my you know what. But with that, anyway, before we get completely off topic, we'll have a sex episode, I promise. But you know, I don't really feel like getting love involved or like falling for another person, at least not in the near future. I just kind of want to have fun and be a single woman in LA and live my life. And I think that's something that is still not socially accepted because it all of a sudden got very cool to have a boyfriend again. Do y'all remember that era where it was just like so fun to be single and everyone was single and it was like, fuck man, blah, 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 who cares? Like just literally, you know, hookups and blah, 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 and just like have fun, live your life. Sometimes when you reach an extreme level of thinking and things do go quite far with the thinking and like far in a different direction, what happens societally is like, I wish people listening could see where my arms are going. So I'll try to explain this the best that I can. But when things move extremely far in one direction societally, society can realize this has gone too far and just as a collective start to bring it more towards the center and start to understand things. And that's just like how society works. I don't know. I'm not a sociology professor. I'm just like, I'm assuming. That's just what I've noticed in my 23 years of life. Like, I don't know. Don't ask me questions. I don't know. But when we go closer towards the center, then we, you know, stop normalizing some crazy ideas. I did like that era of being single, but I think there's two sides to everything. I think that you can like love yourself and still want love from another person. Does that mean you love yourself any less? No. unless you start dating someone that is the worst, that does bare minimum things that you are so impressed by, or someone who just like clearly doesn't really give a fuck about you. Like all these scenarios, if you believe in love and want love and wait for someone, I don't like to use the word right person, because sometimes like the right person is not like, sometimes who you think is the right person is actually not the right person. Like, I don't even know if there's like a right person other than yourself, honestly. But when you really, really love yourself and care about yourself, you are willing to stay single for however long it takes until you meet that person that fully matches your energy and gives you everything that you need from them. Not everything in the entire world, because they're not God, okay? Let's be serious. Let's wait. But everything that you need and are looking for is essentially what I'm talking about. If you wait out for that person, that truly shows that you love yourself. And perhaps you love yourself more than these people who are seemingly happy in their relationships. And I say seemingly because I know damn well some of your guys' boyfriends do not give a fuck about you. And want to hear the dirty little secret? You know. I need to drink wine for every episode, guys. But it's like, the dirty little secret is, you know they don't give a fuck. And you're still with them. So you are admitting to yourself, I don't love myself very much, and I prefer being with someone who doesn't care about me over waiting out because you secretly don't trust the universe and you don't trust that you're ever going to find that person. So you're willing to settle before it's quote unquote too late. And naturally, as women, we are told that we have a timer for when we can find love, and that love equals babies, love equals like your fertility. For some reason, we love to tie those things together. What's the reason? Let's say it together. Patriarchy. But it's true. We often tell women, you have to get married at this age because if you don't, then you are going to be infertile. Like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care one bit, actually, like not meeting the love of my life until I'm like 60 or 70 or 100. Y'all see those women that are like in their hundreds and they meet their person. Like that's what I aspire to be. And also how young those women look, because a man's not freaking like rogándola, you know what I mean? Like they look so young and so like full of life and everything because they chose themselves over what society was telling them to do, which is constantly what your life is. You are constantly seeing how much of society am I willing to accept? How much of myself am I willing to accept? All of these concepts, we are just learning them together as a collective. You know what I mean? So if you are in this era where you want to wait, or maybe you're in this era where you're in a relationship and you know you're not happy and you know that man doesn't give a fuck and you're like, I want to leave, you have every right to do so. You can go through your healing journey. You can start loving yourself in a different way or learn what it truly means to be alone and in solitude and understand who you are. Me having experience dating people obviously has tainted some of that, because to a certain level, and this is something I'm still learning and going through, to a certain level, there is a fear of being alone. And that fear always exists. It's always going to be there as women. It will always be there. And it sucks because I want y'all to know you are so much more than what a man does to you. You are so much more than how a man treats you. You're so much more than the security that a man provides you with. And you're worth so much more than that. So don't date these stupid ass little boys and don't be afraid to leave something that is not serving you anymore. I don't care how long it's been. I don't care if you've been with this person for like 10 years. If you are not happy, why are you choosing to not be happy? Why don't you choose to be happy? Well, part of you is like addicted to the self-hatred. Unpack those things. When you learn your struggles and you learn your wounds, girl, you get awakened to a different level. Like, it is so crazy, y'all. So, oh my God, I almost burped on the mic. It's the wine, y'all. I haven't even had that much of it. Like, that's the crazy part. I'm like, I should drink wine before the pod. I'm like acting like I would not be doing this sober or acting like this if I was sober. But case in point, or back to the original plot of the movie. Yeah, if you are not happy and like you want a change and you want to learn who you are, do that. You know what's crazy? You don't need a man. But I'm not sure all of you have actually accepted that or understood that. Obviously, we have to remember like this is coming from a queer perspective as well. So it's like, I obviously have options and stuff. So maybe that's why I'm kind of like, you don't need a man. Like, just literally date a woman. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, but I'm not. But with that, yeah, I really just want you guys to just not hate yourselves and to know that, yeah, you don't have to accept anything less than yourself. There's no point. The only people that are winning are men and the patriarchy, so why let them win? And the cost of them winning is your happiness and your life. How is that fair? That is not a fair deal at all. Like, girl, they literally will get everything, and what? What do you get? A shoulder to cry on? Get a friend. Like, dick, get a vibrator. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like you have so many other options than to choose to be unhappy. And I really want you guys to remember that with every scenario that you're in, any dating experience that you have, that if it's not serving you and it's not making you feel powerful, then you don't have to go through it. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what your close friend says. I don't care what your parents say. I don't care what traditional values you are so tied to. Untie yourself and free yourself. You do not have to go through anything you don't want to experience, okay? So, with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode and have been enjoying all the episodes. If this is your first episode by me, hey girl, hey. I am at Lisette Serrano on everything, on Instagram, on TikTok. You can follow me on there. You can check out my YouTube for some of my music, and my Spotify. All of that is going to be Lisette Serrano. I keep everything my first and last name, just like it's easier. I have so many different mediums and different art that it's a little hard sometimes. But I really hope that you guys enjoyed this episode and that you maybe learned a little something, that you maybe got the opportunity to dig a little deeper and understand yourself on a deeper level. You are obviously very important. Even if you don't know or believe it, I believe it. So basically, love yourself and don't be with anybody until you are being treated exactly how you know you deserve it. And if you feel like you don't deserve it that much, one, you do, and two, figure out why you feel like you don't deserve it. Figure out what wound you have to heal, what lesson you have to relearn. And once you go through that work and experience that, learn to love yourself a little more, life becomes so much more fabulous, and you don't really pay mind to things that society might think is very important, like a relationship. You start focusing on other things. You start focusing on yourself. You start focusing on your style, on just caring about yourself and caring about the people that are here for you and do actually care about you and want you to succeed. Okay? So I love you all so much. I am wishing you the best always. And let's cheers. Let's do a quick cheers to the camera. Cheers. Okay. Or to your speaker, wherever you're listening to me from, your TV. We did a quick cheers. Let's sip our wine. Keep it classy. I love you all. Have a fantastic day, week, night, morning, whenever and wherever y'all are listening. And I love you so much. Bye.